Welcome to the TJ Walker Success Podcast. In today's episode, you'll hear exclusive insights from my course, Career Transition Strategies Breaking into a New Industry. If you're ready to pivot your career, build credibility, and stand out, this episode is for you. Want the full course? Click the link in the description to get started now. Let's start off with a quick tip. Don't be afraid to simply tell people, hey, I'm brand new. I don't know anything about your industry. Can you tell me about, and then the name of the industry. Most people love sharing expertise. They might not want you saying, hey, can you give me a job? But if you say, hey, I don't know anything, you appear to be wise. Can you help me? Most people actually will do that. Remember, you're only new once. If you move to a new town, people are often very friendly with you. They may invite you over to their home. If you say, hey, I've just moved in. If you are the new freshman on campus, you're new, people are friendlier. It's exactly the same thing if you are new in a particular industry. Quite often people want to feel like they're mentoring, they're providing a service. And frankly, when it comes to people's ego, they love talking about what they do. They're in their industry because they have some kind of a passion for it, some kind of an industry. And deep down, everybody thinks they know more than a lot of other people in their industry, and they love to tell you about it. Use that to your advantage. But the key is, don't be afraid to ask and to tell them, hey, I'm new to this industry. I don't know anything. What can you tell me about? Or ask a particular question. You'll be amazed at how much great information people will share with you freely. So I believe in learning through positive examples and really learning in a positive environment. We're going to get to all that in just a moment, but I do want to spend just a few seconds on helping you avoid the two biggest mistakes people make when they're trying to transition their career from one industry to another. The first one is spending all your time sending out resumes. Do not, I beg you, do not spend more than 5% of your time sending out a resume. You need to spend your time researching. You need to spend your time meeting people. You need to spend your time really learning insights and building relationships with people in your industry, because ultimately, that's how you're going to get hired anyway. Too many people convince themselves, well, I'm working hard. I spent 10 hours in front of the computer yesterday sending out 10,000 resumes. It's all a waste of time. So please do not spend more than 5% of your time sending out resumes, no matter where you are in your career transition, but especially at the beginning. Next big mistake, do not simply say, oh, that's a hot industry. Let me hop on the bandwagon. Because I've seen people hop onto the metaverse and hop onto crypto and hop onto AI, and these things can go up and down, become hot and cold. You need to have some enduring interest and passion for a subject. I'm not saying passion's the only thing that matters, but don't pick a new industry just because you think, oh, crypto's hot, let me go all into crypto. That is usually a prescription for disaster. We're going to go into a lot more depth on how to pick industries, how to do research in industries, but please, let's develop the mindset right now. Don't just hop into something simply because it's the flavor of the month. Let's step back for a moment and focus on our short-term goals and our long-term goals. If you are trying to transition out of one particular industry, one particular career path into another, your short-term goal should simply be to learn more about a lot of industries, meet people, see what interests you, see what opportunities are there. That's the short-term goal. Now, the longer-term goal should be, I believe, not how do I get a job? How do I get the highest paying job? How do I get the best benefits? Not that those things aren't important, but I want you to position your goals a little more broadly. Really, your goal is to use your talents in a way to help people where you feel fulfilled and challenged, and for you to have the income you need to meet your short-term needs and your long-term financial goals. Now, that may sound like the same thing, But for many, many industries and many people at different stages of their career, it's going to be much easier to get a consulting gig with a company than it is to be hired full time. You may be in an industry where you may have a specialized skill from another industry that might make it easy for you to get, say, 5 consulting clients where you're doing some particular specific small task and you put the income together and it gives you more than what a full-time salary and benefits would. I've been there before. So I want you to think more broadly. I understand there are times in your life when you're thinking, TJ, this all sounds great, but I got to figure out how to pay rent this month. I got family to feed. I got to do something quickly. I feel for you. I've been there, but I do want you to realize sometimes things don't happen just like that. And it may seem easier. Well, if I could just get a job this week and get paid next Friday, all my problems will be solved. I don't have 2 months. Well, sometimes you're going to have to take to 2 or 3 or 4, or even 6 months, build a consulting practice, build a freelance business. And then maybe after a year and a half, one of your clients loves you so much and you love them so much, they make you a full-time offer and you shut down your consulting or your freelance business. I find that model works much more effectively for a lot of people, especially if they are mid-career. If they already have 10, 15, or certainly 20 years work experience, quite often it's easier to work your way in to a company, an organization as a consultant. Let's take some baby steps. Let's date before we get married. That's often the easiest way of doing it. The other thing you'll find, and this was true in my own case, is you may think you want a job with the stability of, oh, the benefits, that's great. But you start a freelance business, you start a consulting business, and all of a sudden you're in the new industry, you're working, and if you work the right way and build out and grow, you actually make more money than you would if you were a full-time employee, and you can't be fired. If you have 10 clients and one of them fires you, you can pick up another one. It doesn't destroy your revenue for the month or the year. So ultimately, again, every industry is different. The particular niche you're in might not work this way, but it might. So I want you to keep open the idea of maybe long-term you have your own business, and that way you have much more control over your destiny, where you live, where you work, how you work. Keep that in mind as an option, even if you've told yourself, I'm not a business person. I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm not one of these networkers. Time out and relax. Don't start positioning yourself in all these little boxes that make it impossible for you to have your own business. I'm not talking about you becoming the next Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg. I'm not talking about you going out and raising $1 billion. What I am talking about is there may be a way for you to be in this new industry, work, but instead of getting one paycheck every Friday or once a month, you get a handful of paychecks from different organizations, and it works out even better than the original plan. So please keep an open mind to that. In this section, we're going to go into more depth on networking, particular tips, tricks, tactics, and strategies for networking more effectively in your new industry, the industry you're trying to get a toehold in and perhaps have a long, thriving career in. So I'm going to give you a lot of particular tips, but I want to start off with just one overriding concept that if you get that right, all the other things will happen naturally and much more easily. And here it is. Position yourself as some expert within this industry. If you can position yourself ideally as the number one expert in some tiny slice of this new industry, you will draw people to you. Now you may say, well, gee, I don't know anything about the industry. Well, you know something about what you've been doing throughout your career, throughout your life. Let's figure out how to take that skill set and apply it to this new industry. Again, forgive me for seeming self-promotional. I'm not trying to sell anything here to you other than I want you to have the skills you need to make successful transition for your new career. But what I did when I entered the field of artificial intelligence is I didn't say, hey, I'm a great AI expert. Google, come hire me. I'm going to be a programmer. No, I took my existing skill set of I teach people how to communicate more effectively, looked at AI, and then I positioned myself as an expert on I can help individual subject matter experts, leaders, managers, speakers, trainers, C-level executives figure out how to communicate effectively by using artificial intelligence cloning technology and actually making a clone that could be useful to people. That's how I put, so it's a tiny, tiny slice of the whole world of artificial intelligence. It's a tiny slice of digital cloning. But I reasoned, I think correctly, that for so many experts in the world, they're just uncomfortable even doing things like making the first video that their clone can be based on. How do you look? What do you do with your hands? Because it's different, your hand movement, recording a video for a clone, than it is if you are just on a live Zoom meeting or a live TV show, or even what I'm doing now. And I learned that the hard way, because the first time I made a video to train my clone, I was moving my hands as I normally do. But then when I watched the clone speak, someone would be talking to my clone, and my clone would be, and it looked weird. It looked stupid. It looked odd. I learned that. I said, you know what? Other people would find that information valuable. So that's a part of what I put into my book on how to make a digital clone, a video-based digital clone. It's part of what I put in my online courses on how to make your own video digital clone. And again, I also specialized even more narrowly of not cloning technology, not individual clones, not text clones, but I specialize in how to make the video aspect of an individual subject matter expert digital clone. So it's a very narrow slice, but because of that, I could position myself as the best in the world, in part because I don't see anyone else going after that niche. That's the secret most people really never grasp, is you can be number one at something if you figure out what does people value that no one else is doing that you can learn how to do at least a few minutes sooner than anyone else and get it out there. And in fact, I've had other cloning startup companies now reach out to me and specifically say, hey, TJ, you seem like you're the biggest expert on this subject. We need your help. We want to pick your brain. So that's the easiest way to network, is by positioning yourself as already valuable in some sub-niche. And maybe you widen it at some point, but by making yourself truly valuable and being an expert in some teeny slice of it, you will draw people toward you, and then the opportunities will come your way. The number one way of networking in a new industry is to start a podcast. I know you're thinking, oh, TJ, that's too complicated. I'm not a professional broadcaster. You don't have to be a professional broadcaster. All you have to do is talk to a human being and have an interesting conversation. Presumably, that's something you do every day anyway. And yes, you're going to have to spend maybe an afternoon learning some new technology. Now, this is not a course on podcasting, but there are a gazillion courses, websites, services to help you do that. It's not hard. You don't have to spend much money at all, maybe 10 or 20 bucks a month to get going. You can use inexpensive equipment. You don't even have to do video, although I do recommend you use video, even if it's just your webcam and you're doing it on Zoom. So why do I like podcasting so much? In part because 99.99% of the world is either too lazy to start a podcast or too insecure or both. It's always nice to do something that's relatively easy where you have almost no competition. That's why I love podcasting. It's so different than if you write to somebody on LinkedIn and say, hey, I see we're in the same industry. Can we talk and have an introductory call for 15 minutes or a free consultation call? Everybody gets 10,000 of those a day. Delete, 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 delete. But very few people, even respected people in the industry you're targeting, get requests to do interviews on a podcast that's distributed on YouTube and iTunes and other major platforms. That's rare. That's why it stands out. If you just send a message to someone on LinkedIn, say, hey, I want to learn more about this industry. I'm exploring this industry. You're asking a stranger to do a big favor for you. They already have demands on their time from family, friends, colleagues, mounting email. Why is doing a favor to a stranger going to be of higher importance to all that? It's just easy to say no, or even worse, just to ignore. We all do it. Let's face it. You do it. I do it. Requests that come in for people who want to meet on LinkedIn. It's just easy to ignore it. But if you're offering to interview someone and it seems like a real show and has a title that's related to the industry, and you say, hey, I want to talk to you about the accomplishments you've done in your industry or what you're doing with your company, your latest product, your latest service, a book you wrote on this subject. Now it becomes a win-win situation. You win because you get to learn from this person. They win because you're promoting their latest book, their latest product, their latest service, their latest workshop, whatever it is they do in the industry. You're putting a spotlight on that. And you're sharing their ideas with some part of the rest of the world. You're not guaranteeing that you have millions of viewers, listeners to your podcast. I don't have that. But simply creating content that can then be dispersed throughout social media. It's not hard. It's not expensive. You're giving value to that other person. Now you've given them reason to carve out, whether it's a half an hour or hour of their time, put you on their schedule. Now they sort of have to listen to you, introduce yourself, learn about you, and they have an incentive to stay in touch with you, connect with you on LinkedIn, because you're going to promote the interview you did on LinkedIn or other social media platforms that are important to your industry. And these days, the power of artificial intelligence makes it so easy to take a half-hour interview you did, put it in something, and I'm not an affiliate, I'm not promoting any company here with your time. Opus AI is a platform I use, and you can just feed in a 1-2 hour interview, and it will chop it up into 10, 15 different short video clips that you can distribute on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, other platforms around the world. So you're continuing to promote your guest, who will appreciate it, but you're also continuing to promote yourself as a subject matter expert, as an industry thought leader, as someone who's putting a spotlight on other people in the industry. And all of this helps bring more people to you. So that's why I like this particular avenue for networking above all others. And yes, there's a little bit of hurdle at the beginning. You've got to figure out, am I going to use my built-in microphone? Am I going to spend $10 on a microphone from Amazon to clip on myself? Am I maybe going to spend $15 on a ring light? There are a bunch of little decisions you have to make. It doesn't have to be perfect right from the beginning. Something beats nothing. You get over that little hurdle, start doing a few interviews, doing more, people start pitching you after a while. Infinitely more effective than the cold call or the cold email or the cold LinkedIn connection. Volunteer. Figure out something you can do to volunteer to the industry you want to enter. Pretty much every industry has some kind of a trade association, some type of a local chapter, state chapter, national, international chapter. And most of them do most of the things they do through volunteers. Nobody knows if you're brand new or you've been in the industry forever. Nobody knows if you're making $1 million a year or nothing a year when you are a volunteer. So, for example, I remember I used to be active in the Public Relations Society of America, and one of my colleagues happened to have a background in comedy and writing comedies on Broadway and off Broadway. So he quickly volunteered to write the annual comedy skit. And it really showcased his talents, made people very much aware of him, and brought more clients to him. So again, I want you to think more broadly about skills you have in one area of life and how they can be used in another area of life or another industry. Let's say you're entering a new industry and you really don't know anything. You want to meet people, but you see they have monthly get-together, networking session, informal thing, and it just happens to be at other people's offices or homes. Why not volunteer to be the host 1 month? You may have a home, you may have an office space through something else you're doing where you can make it available. This was a great way for me to network when I did live and work in New York City. I had a large training facility, so it was easy for me to offer to host meetings for the National Speakers Association and the International Association of Business Communicators and other trade associations. It was easy, and I had people coming to me. Now, I realize you might not have some large office space or a large home, but you have something you can donate. You may be trying to get into the software industry and you're just fantastic at making pastries. That's maybe a side hobby of yours, or maybe you used to be a pastry maker. Volunteer to make the desserts at the next annual holiday party or the next monthly meeting as a way of giving value to the community, starting conversation. Someone can come up to you and say, wow, this is the best macaroon I've ever tasted. How did you learn how to do this? It starts a conversation. Then you can talk to them about what they do, and you just never know where it will lead. So I do want you to think seriously about volunteering. Again, this is about giving back, providing value first. I'm not saying you should work for free and be someone's unpaid intern for 2 years and be exploited. That's not what I'm suggesting. I do want you to think about how can you provide some value to the industry as you're trying to learn about it so that it's a win-win way. You give value to an organization, you donate time, service, even if it's just cleaning up after a monthly get-together or cocktail party. People are going to be a lot more likely to talk to you, chat with you, take a meeting with you, have coffee with you next week if you've already demonstrated value. So please think about some way of volunteering for the industry you want to enter. So here's my number one tip for you as you prepare for an interview for a job in a new industry or a consulting assignment in a new industry. There's some controversy here. Not everyone agrees with this, but I have found it far and away to be the most effective thing for my clients, colleagues, students, and even myself. And that is to go into the interview as if you'd already been hired as a consultant and you're there to give your first report. I want you just brimming forth with enthusiasm and ideas about good things you're going to do. Areas you're going to add value right away. Projects where you think you can make an improvement right now. Yes, occasionally there's the danger of someone saying, well, this person didn't know 100% what they talked about, or they tried things we've already tried. There's that danger. They might not like one of your ideas. In my experience, most employers, most people in any industry are like, wow, that person's really excited about working with us. That person's full of ideas, and maybe I didn't like this idea or this idea, but their last idea, that's something we could actually work on. You're giving them value. We're back to my theme from earlier, always be giving value to other people. A job interview is just another opportunity to give value. Too many people go into a job interview, and when they're told, okay, tell me something about yourself, they're like, well, I graduated from blah, blah, blah university, and my last job was blah, blah, blah. Well, that's on the resume. That's not interesting. That's not providing value to anyone. Instead, if someone says, so tell me about yourself, say something like, I've been fascinated with technology my whole life. I've always thought, wouldn't it be great to clone myself so I could help even more people? And that's why I immersed myself in a lot of new platforms on cloning technology and experimented and tried and created my own. And now I have mine, and I think that can be of huge value to all the executives here who could clone their I mean, that's just an example. I think you see where I'm going. The question was the same. Can you tell me about yourself? One answer was boring and humdrum and uninteresting. Another launched right into how I'm going to help the organization and have their executives scale their time and expertise more. I would even go so far as to come in with a written memo of things you think you could do the first 30 days on the job. Now, you may want to hold it back, see how the conversation goes, see if they're interested. There's always a situation in some organizations, really big companies or government institutions, where they're going through a checklist. They have to do that for compliance issues, and you don't have as much latitude. But when you're dealing with higher ups, CEOs, senior vice presidents, chief officers of various segments of the company, chief marketing officers, people like that, quite often they just want to have a conversation with you to figure out what's the real value you have to us. In that case, bring out your ideas. In some cases, actually give them a written document. Here are 10 ideas I have of how I could provide value to your organization right now. Even if they think every idea is awful, a certain percentage of people will be impressed that you took the initiative. You cared enough to think about their industry, think about their organization, to think about how you can help them, even if they don't love your ideas. That's extraordinarily impressive to a lot of people, because in a lot of organizations, people go through job interviews with people, and a lot of people showing up are like, oh, so tell me why I should want to work with you. Now, I got so many options, and I'm so wonderful. Tell me, what does your company do? And they clearly haven't done any homework at all. They are not showing any enthusiasm. So yes, I want you to have any necessary technical skills and to build those skills if you don't have them yet. But a lot of people applying for any job or any consultancy have the technical skills. The magic secret sauce quite often is, are you really excited about working with these people? Everybody likes, all things being equal, they like to work with someone who's excited about working with them. At some point, everyone feels like their company, their organization is the best at some level, because that's why they're working there. They didn't think it was the best, they'd go someplace else. If nothing else, they've convinced themselves this is the best place in the world, and that makes it easier to get up in the morning and go to the office. Now, I don't want you to do or say anything fake or phony. I do want you to come up with ideas of things you can do to help this organization that are based on your own skill set, your interest, the research you've done on this company, what its strengths and weaknesses are, how are their latest products doing. And by the way, we don't have time to go into all this, but it is fairly obvious you need to do your research before talking to a company. That doesn't mean just scanning quickly through their website. It means searching anytime they've been mentioned in the news in the last 18 months. It means searching YouTube. It means going to ChatGPT or other AI and say, tell me everything bad about this company. Tell me about every scandal. Tell me about every problem they've had. It means if they're a publicly traded company,
finding out what analysts are writing about them, knowing what their stock price is done. You need to know all of that. So when you do give advice, it shows you've done your homework. You have reasons behind your arguments and your suggestions. And there's a thoughtfulness to your approach. So please think about how you can come to that job interview ready to give value. You've got to first sense them and see if they're up for that. They may, again, just have 10 questions they have to ask every single person the same way. But even then, there are opportunities for you to show you've really thought about them. You've really thought about how you can help them and give value to them right away. Everybody appreciates that. So please be proactive in your job interview. You should never leave a job interview saying, well, I wish they'd asked me this question. How come they never asked that? It shouldn't have anything to do with what questions they ask you. You have zero control over questions. You know what you have 100% control over? Your own mouth. That's what you need to rehearse. That's what you need to prepare. And that's what you need to have great ideas coming out of, ideas to help them.
That's just a small sample of what's inside career transition strategies breaking into a new industry. If you're serious about pivoting into a new career path and doing it with confidence, this course gives you the tools to make it happen. Click the link in the description to get the full course, packed with AI-powered coaching, community support, and the strategies that have helped thousands of professionals just like you. Thanks for joining me on the TJ Walker Success Podcast. Until next time, keep learning, keep leading, and keep growing.